So I meant to hit the record button. I think that Emily just did that. So just be aware we're going to be recording the webinar, and you'll have access to it afterwards, as well as this deck that I'm showing you. I will be able to send that out to you here. Now, in general van options, we work on Promaster, Sprinter, and Transit and provide products that we design and manufacture for those. And we build them all. And I'm not going to say anyone is particularly better for you or not. Ultimately, that's going to be your choice. We're just here to help you figure out your needs and point you to what's going to be the best fit for you. Now, with the Sprinter, the first up, it's the kind of big highlights on it are it's a really good looking rig and it's really easy to build on. It's a really popular vehicle, has some great options associated with it. And some of the drawbacks can be the 4x4 model tends to need some work in order to improve drivability. In general, the layout and overall sizing on the models tends to be on par with the Transit and Promaster, and vice versa, of course. But one thing we found is in general, the Sprinter really, in our market, tends to only have a higher roof as an option. Some of the drawbacks too can tend to be a higher price per mile. Now with the Transit, then it gets pretty high marks. Not the highest, but it drives great. It's got a lot of power. The aesthetics are good, better than they used to be as well. Building is pretty reasonable. There's a couple ins and outs that we have to accommodate for. And it also comes in a mid-roof. We'll talk a little bit more about the high and mid-roof options a little bit as far as height and clearance inside the van. Cost per mile tends to be better, and the aftermarket products are almost on par with what Sprinter has available now as well. Now with the Promaster, frankly, I don't like how it drives. It's just not as enjoyable as some of the other options. What it does have that's a huge benefit though is the interior space, the width. You can sleep, if you're 6'2", you can sleep side to side without getting bump outs in the window. So that's a big plus for the Promaster. It also has a lower step-in height due to the fact, and so the floor is closer to the ground as opposed to the Sprinter and the Transit. Mainly because it's a front-wheel drive vehicle. Now the aftermarket selection of products is getting better. It still hasn't caught up with Transit or Sprinter yet, but it is definitely a good viable option. However, it does have some of the more challenging ins and outs in order to browse. Now Sprinter has both high and low marks, as does the Transit and the Promaster. We typically have suggested the Transit most, as it tends to check the boxes most for more of our customers than not. Best thing to do though is to go drive it and figure out what feels right. Now that's a good breakdown of what van, Sprinter, Transit, Promaster, but there's a lot of details that further help with deciding what type of van, long, short, high, etc. To get. And ultimately, from here on, it's more of a question on what is the primary use of your van, and you'll hear me resonate that over. Ultimately, how do you need this tool to serve you? How are you going to use it most? Hanging out, it's just going to be headquarters for the gear, and hit the trailhead, go for a walk, or are you going to be working in the van? Is it going to be more of an office? There's a lot to answer with that question. Now, are you going to be in the city driving a lot, just on the highway for long periods of time? And that's going to help decide if you should probably opt more for a shorter van and a longer van, based on drivability. There's a couple of details regarding that I can go into more as far as the Transit wheelbase and a longer extended body as opposed to a longer wheelbase Sprinter, 170 Sprinter, or the Promaster. Another thing to think about with that is, the second row seat. If you are going to be needing a second row seat for family or otherwise, versus just wanting one for allowing an occasional passenger to join you on a trip, that's going to be one of the deciding factors, or one of the points that I tend to push back on it, mainly because it commandeers so much interior space whenever you're laying out considering. Now, with the right budget, you can do anything really physics allows. But in this kind of application, you're going to find that like a longer van and a taller van will just require more labor and more material. So with the longer vans, such as the Sprinter 170, the Transit 148 extended long body, and then also the Promaster 159. It's just a longer rig with more material. But depending on how extensively you build it out, then that can also affect your budget. So there's a lot of levers to be pulled on finding out the right budget value. Now, as far as land, how big do you need? What size do you need? Consider your toys that you're going to bring. Can you, have an all-the-way bike rack on the back as opposed to putting bicycles inside the van? Are these needs? Are they just desires? And also think about just leaving space available for the sake of having space left available, so that the inside of this environment that you're going to be residing in just isn't so constrained and packed. The quick anecdote is we tend not to build anything that goes from floor to ceiling. And a big part of that is it's a camper van as opposed to an RV. And as soon as we build a big structure, say like an interior shower that's permanent, then immediately it gets pretty claustrophobic inside that small space. So we put a lot of design principles with products that. Now, as far as van height and other big considerations, how tall are you? And I made a comment earlier about the transit net roof being so valuable. Your height is really going to drive the roof height need that you need in a van. Now, a 6'2" person will pretty much require a Promaster high roof or transit high roof. Now, if you're 6 foot, then pretty much any of the high roofs are going to be fine, including the Sprinter. But if you're 5'8", you have a big benefit, a big opportunity, which is getting a transit mid roof. And what that's going to allow you to do is save some gas for one, but it's just a slightly smaller build without drawback on losing a bunch of upper cabinetry, usable space. And there's some, length considerations with that. You pretty much have a transit mid roof and the 148 long body, I call it regular 148. But that's it could be a great opportunity if that's desired. Now, van types, say we have cargo, crew, and passenger. This gets into that second row seat comment that I made a little bit ago. By far, a cargo van is going to be the blankest canvas that we need. It's pretty obvious. But it's going to require more work to put into it. However, if you are going to be doing a full build, then it tends to be the better option than, say, a passenger or a crew, depending on your seating needs. I'll get that there in a second, because we're not going to have to rip out things that have been purchased, say a factory interior trimming package that we would need to pull out in order to put in the rail system and all the equipment. So with a crew van, it really makes a lot of sense for a family that's really looking for a simple build. They know that they're going to almost always carry a couple of people. Maybe it's a bicycle shuttling rig, and if it's not a family, they know that they're going to be, bicycling with a number of buddies, and they want to make a rig that they can do a shuttle run to the top of the mountain or something. But again, what is the primary purpose of the vehicle? With a crew, particularly a transit, then that second row seat's factory standard, and that's great. It's cheap. It makes for a good utilization of the budget of your build. But with the Transit, be aware, then we're not able to remove this factory headliner because there's an airbag that runs from the driver all the way back. Now, people disengage that airbag, fine, you don't. But what you do get out of that Pro version is the ability, if you want to, have a simple build with us just building the back half of it, or whatever builder you choose, just building the back half, and you can get into a really nice build for a good cost with a great bed system. Say in our case, we could put in the Roost Van's bunk bed system, and even a small sink cabinet for that matter, in a crew van just like this. And we've done that several times, and it's worked great. Even though it's a little limiting, but that's a little bit more of a light build. Now with the passenger van, really the only time I would consider a passenger van is when you're transporting a lot of people most all the time. And if you're wanting to build out a camper van or something with more amenities, at some point, whenever you need to transport this many people, just an RV is probably a better, more appropriate choice. We have stripped down passenger vans in the past, and our customers have pretty much come back and said, well, they put quite a bit of money into buying a passenger van with all the stuff that they just couldn't use in their build. Maybe other than the second row of seats, but then we'll have to custom trim things to make the aesthetics meet our standards. So passenger van choice is pretty rare. Now, back to the question, what's the primary purpose? So some of the factory options that I'll go over in these vans that are available, just straight up front, the Transit Trail. I won't go through all the details on that, but it's pretty infamous, and we have our opinions about it. It's a factory lift, which is great. There's a lot of trims and other add-ons that tend not to be very valuable to us. But again, if you're really needing that lift, then you can do a trail, or when they become available, because they still currently recall and hold. But there's other options as well. One of those options that is pretty effective is just Transit all-wheel drive, upgrading the tires, and then you can still get to a really effective build at a lower price point, have more budget available for finishing out the rest of your build and investing in the interior. Seat swivels as a factory option are great. Bench seat, also a great factory option, depending on some of the other details I spoke of earlier. Sliding steps are really good. There's some aftermarket sliding steps that's going to be pricey, work great, but the factory sliding steps are pretty awesome. Factory windows that are fixed, very few factory window add-on options exist that are screened for airflow. So just a couple factory windows. I'm a big proponent of windows all around, just a lot of visual, acuity in the vehicles, so I can enjoy the outdoors that I'm using the vehicle for my usage. And then, of course, there's a lot of interior driving options in the cockpit. Just the heads-up display and so forth that can really make the drive time much more enjoyable. Some of the maybe options that I just talked about regarding passenger or crew, but in general, we haven't found the options like the auxiliary battery, since we're typically putting in our autonomous battery system anyway. Rear air conditioners don't tend to be very valuable because you need to have the van running in order to use the rear air conditioner. And we're insulating the vans typically so much anyway that front AC while you're driving tends to do a really good job cooling the van down quite a bit. Upfitter packages is in this category as well as the partitions that are between the front seats and the rear. Great for cargo vans if you're moving cargo, but not so much if you're wanting to do a van build, because there's a lot of detailing that is restrictive with that cargo partition. Well, moving on to the next topic. budgeting. So typically our upfit costs are anywhere in between 15 and 60K, depending on what you want to have done. We have simple core build for less than that, and we can even have a fully built out van for more than that. Core build, you're looking around 15, another 5 to 10, depending on your sleeping and cabinetry arrangements, another 5 to 10, 15, depending on, what all, kitchen requirements you want to have. You have exterior stuff that you want to add solar and awning and rack, 5 to 10. If you have an extensive amount of cabinetry or a dinette, that can also add on. We do a really good job taking a look at that budget and trying to get you the most for it. But that doesn't really relate to what type of van to choose, but it is an important consideration in looking at the entire process of building out your van. We're regularly encouraged by our appraisals after we've built out the van and getting those independently appraised so that they can either be refinanced to make your dollar go farther. And typically with financing, we suggest to, if cash is a concern, to finance the base price of the vehicle. Either use cash for building the vehicle or a bridge loan or something of that effect. And then when the van's done, appraise it and getting it rolled up into a RV or camper van loan. That can go a long way to kind of making a dream become reality. So that's kind of the end of the big brush strokes that I wanted to paint for you guys, as far as giving some fodder that we can dig into a little bit deeper. Any one of these vans are great. We build them all and enjoy building them all. We do tend to lean towards the transit a little bit more, but I'm not here to say one's better than the other. Just want to help you figure out what's going to work for you the best. So right now we're in a position where Emily's going to be giving us some collated notes that she can spit out to me, and after that, then raise your hand and we'll get more of an open forum going. But for now, Emily, is there anything I missed or anything that I can elaborate on a little bit further?
I got 2 questions from Siobhan. Let's see where to go. Is there any advantage to getting the factory headliner in the Mercedes Sprinter 170?
It depends ultimately on how you're going to build it out. I think something pretty important to discuss in general with van building. I've seen a lot of poorly built and a lot of great, very well built vans done by others. And one thing that we do with every van is put in a rail system. So if you're going to be getting a factory headliner or really any factory work done, and you plan on putting in upper cabinetry, I would opt against it. If you don't plan on putting in upper cabinetry, then absolutely, it's a great way to finish out the top of the van. Particularly anything coming from the factory is going to be typically priced really quite well. We put rail systems in all of our vans, and they are not compatible with the factory trim work, mainly because we need that metal rail to attach everything to, directly attached to the frame, the chassis of the vehicle. Does that answer your question pretty well?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that was exactly what I wanted to understand. Thank you.
Cool.
Yay. And then he also asked, what is the usefulness of the factory floor options?
Well, that's a great question. So
That is.
The Sprinter factory floor is awesome. We have pretty much anytime anybody brings one, as long as there's some caveats there, but for the most part, get the Sprinter factory floor option. We can always pull it, or you or whoever's doing the build can always pull it, put a little bit of insulation, a little bit of sound deadening down, and then replace it. And then you have a great, robust, very robust factory floor. Yeah, I mean, it's not super pretty. If you're wanting to really dress out a van and really nice build, probably not save it. But if you're wanting to get a good floor that's really robust and scratch resistant, absolutely grab it. Transit factory floor, it's soft, still a good floor, but mounting cabinetry like lower kitchen cabinetry and so forth, water tanks with cabinetry, no, don't even worry about getting it. It's just doesn't have the structure that's needed to support a lower kitchen cabinet. And you know what? I can't say that I'm very educated on the ProMaster floor options. So if anyone is, when we open up for chat, then maybe we can bring some more information to the table.
I had a follow-up on the Sprinter floor. Is there a difference between the wood and plastic floor, or recommended which way to go?
If you have an option between the two, I think that I'm gonna get this backwards. The newer models are only doing the plastic, whereas 2018, there's quite a few years where we were seeing the wood floor. I think both are really fine. The wood is nicer, but it also may wear a little bit more poorly. I can't really say that for certain. I've seen the wood floor abraded quite a bit in older vans, whereas the plastic floor, when it scuffs, then it doesn't show raw wood. So I think either one really is fine. It's more about insulating underneath, just having that product down so you have something to stand up. Abraded.
Does any of your cabinetry actually attach through the floor, or is it all attached to the rails?
Well, all of our stuff, and kind of back to my point about when you're building out a van, just make sure it's done well and safely. All of our product mounts to the mounting system and the rails. In some select cases, we do bolt down through the floor for additional security, particular for like passenger, passenger cabinetry in the doorway.
Thank you.
And
That's
the-
really helpful.
Yeah.
And then Shazan and Renee both kind of had similar type questions. The first one is, I'd love to understand how to actually convert the title of a vehicle from a personal vehicle title to an RV title,
Yeah.
especially using factory OEM financing. And then Renee asked, and if you refinance the van after it's built into a camper van, will the van be upgraded or integrated for resale at some point in the future?
So two different topics really. So this is kind of a complicated one. You have the financing that doesn't necessarily require, depending on the state, so careful with that, doesn't necessarily require that in order to get an RV loan that it be titled as an RV or camper van, which are two different designations. Retitling is super easy. Now, I can speak about this. So I ended up retitling our van, which, well, it wasn't financed though, it was bought outright. And I went to the title company, DOT, and just went up and asked them, okay, I need to retitle this as a camper van. And all they did was ask me, and this is pretty common across many states, check with your own, that if it had a sink, if it had sleeping, and I want to say that that was it, maybe food storage, like cold food storage, then it was camper van titleable. And by doing that, then my title costs per year were reduced. And I thought at the time it would actually give us more clout to refinance as an RV, but it turned out not to be the case. They were actually pretty irrelevant. Now, this is only applicable if you're like not buying a vehicle off the lot, getting financing on the lot. So if you have your own van and then you're going to get it upfitted, then that's a situation that I'm talking about now. So it may not even be necessary to retitle it as a camper van. I went through the process for the education value of it, and titling tag fees are much less expensive too. So not a great direct answer, but do a little bit more research and don't assume that in order to get it refinanced by a bank, that it needs to be titled as an RV. I do not believe that that is true.
And I think that's it for the chat questions. So this is a really good sized group to have some back and forth conversations. If you
Yeah.
guys do have other questions.
Yeah, we were wondering if it was going to be more like 20, but no, this is great. So yeah, feel free to raise your hand and or type in if you recognize no one else's hands are already raised. I'd be happy to answer any more questions. Graham.
Hi, Graham.
Hi. So new products you're coming online with.
Say again, Graham.
What new products you have coming online?
Well, right now, we're focusing a lot on our paneling and interior kits in general. I do have a lot of cabinetry that we have built that we have been repeatedly testing and putting in current vans. A shallow passenger cabinet is one of my favorite ones right now because with our lower cabinetry ecosystem, then I was really interested in increasing the galley width that you could stand in a lot. Another product line is the Promaster rail system, and we're really looking for Promasters that we can further test the rails that we've already developed. Because really our van shop is our R&D lab. We build a lot of vans and we just create so much new stuff as well. Our cots, now we have a set of cots that I'd like to call the erector cot along with our other bed systems, but my business partner's pushing back on that one a little bit. That's a great product that it can be one or two. It's kind of like a pseudo Murphy bed. Works with our rail system as well. And then of course with the Promaster, then all the upper cabinetry specific to the Promaster too. But I'd say the ecosystem of our cabinetry is a big one. We have already released many, like say beta products that are electrical DIY kit system is a big one. We're also doing pre-cut insulation, flooring. We have a pretty simple flooring system that again is DIY and mail order and shippable. That is just right at the edge of being released. So I'd say our biggest focus, Graham, right now is everything associated with the core build of the van. We have a lot of things in the outside that cabinetry and so forth, periphery. But our focus really is the core build DIY shippable product right now. And we're pretty much almost there. I mean, if we had a customer wanting an entire kit reach out to us, then we'd be able to, it may not be able to be checked out online, but so we'd be able to put that whole kit together, including the floor. Right now, we already have paneling, electric, rail system, everything ready.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, Renee, go for it.
Back to that. Okay, so I've been looking at different vans and I went to the dealers and they said something about if you do your own build, then it does something with the VIN. So it goes back to what Dennis was talking about with maybe it's the title that I need to look into if I did my, bought a van and had it done versus getting a factory build, I guess, and how that all works.
Well, it's really whenever you purchase a vehicle, you purchase something, it's yours. You can do really anything you want to it. If it's being financed, I mean, you still can really do anything that you want to. It's going to be, you'll want to take a look at insurance, and I can speak on that as well. But you're not really restricted regarding what you can do to your vehicle. One thing that is important is warranty. So with all vans, then if there is any kind of a warranty concern, then they're going to come into the van and they're going to say, oh, it's been altered. And we take a lot of pride in not messing with any of like the factory wiring and also adhering to the BEM, which is the builder's code book, and how we install all of our products. Drill keep out zones, not rewiring, factory wiring, utilizing factory ground points and things like that. So I'm not sure I fully answered that question, but you really have a lot of flexibility on what you want to do whenever you get a vehicle, as long as it's in the manner that it's done. Is something.
Okay. That helped a lot. Thanks, Dennis.
Sure thing.
Thank you, Renee. How about you, Chris?
Yeah, so I was curious if we opted to get a transit crew, that obviously the headliner comes back so far. So from the end of the headliner, are you able to install your roof rail system all the way back and then install some upper cabinets in that setup?
Correct. Yeah. So with that crew, I'm going to assume you need that second row seat for a family or other needs.
Yeah.
Then we still have a lot available to build in the back. Really common approach is we'll put in a full rail system of back half, upper and lower rail system, paneling, a little bit of electric for some lighting and some control. There's just enough room to put in a sink cabinet right behind that bench seat, and we can put some simple water. If you wanted a shower out the back in a 20-gallon tank, then we can do that as well. We can do quite a bit. Be aware though, if we did like the strap-up bed for a bunk bed system, then you really wouldn't have any upper cabinetry available to install, just because there's just not the room with that strap-up bed in order to get upper cabinetry in there. But,
even above the sink portion?
Barely, and
Okay.
we could probably do like a smaller, and we do this all the time when we do what's called a mid shelf that's standalone, and it's just a simple shelving unit, and we could just about tuck something in there like that, but it'll be pretty minimal. What I'd probably end up doing instead is focusing on like bins and other storage opportunities elsewhere in the van. Depending on your height, if you got the bunk bed scenario and you did like a 2-panel, like a 2/3 size lower flip-up kit bed, and I'm assuming everyone's familiar with the flip-up kit bed where it's kind of a sofa scenario, then you could sleep side to side, and then that would give us more floor space that we could build into. Graham, you'd asked about new products. One of the other items that we're looking at too is a 2.5-panel bed, where it's going to extend right to the front of the wheel well. That's going to give us enough room possibly for a simple sink cabinet, burner, small fridge combo. So we can do a lot of it, but we have to steal, rob from Peter to pay Paul a little bit on that layout. At that point, Chris, and I'd probably ask you, what's your primary usage of the vehicle, and how can we best make it work? Sometimes when you're really splitting hairs like that, there's some customization that needs to be done, which continues to work really well. But
Okay, that's great. And then I did have one other question. You mentioned like all-wheel drive might be a good option. Is there any other like powertrain type options that are good to look for?
Not so much. I mean, you Sprinter,
Okay.
you have 2-wheel drive, and I'm going to call it all-wheel drive. It's technically they call it 4x4, but it's really more of an all-wheel drive setup. And then Transit is 2-wheel drive or all-wheel drive, and then Promaster is front-wheel drive. So those are pretty much your options.
Thank you, guys. Shazan?
Yeah, I had a question regarding extended warranties. Um, Given like the build out and weight of the vehicle, does the extended warranty actually become useful from the factory when we're buying a chassis?
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot of experience or knowledge exactly what the extended warranty is, but I do know mechanically working on these vehicles is pricey. I wouldn't say that by us adding what we're adding in our builds is going to make it more likely you would need to take advantage of the warranty, say because the additional weight we're putting in. I'm not too concerned that there's a correlation there. Um, the tires are going to wear out a little bit quicker. There's just more weight in it. Your gas mileage is going to take a small hit, but I don't think it's going to put an undue load on these vehicles. A good point. It's a similar thread. So you have these options of like a 150, 250, or 350 for the Fords, 1500, 2500, 3500, I believe, for Sprinter. Frankly, all of them drive almost exactly the same. We have a 350 Transit. It doesn't even, it barely affected the drivability of it. As far as the engine and the power, I barely even know it's loaded with a build that we've done, because I mean these are utility vehicle chassis that are intended to be loaded within reason. So you know appreciate it and take advantage of it. Sometimes a suspension upgrade is desired, but typically those are on the bigger builds, not the majority of the builds, which tend to be like 4+ lightweight van builds.
Got it. Thank you.
Any other questions, guys? Our hope is that this seminar, the webinar, like makes this less scary and less difficult, because you have this dream of buying a van and then all of a sudden you're here and you're at the buying a van point and then you get stuck because it's overwhelming.
Yeah, I had one more question. Do you have any ideas around like new versus used benefits or?
I think I skipped over a slide regarding that. I think that there was I do. So, I mean, if you're going to be buying a used vehicle, it's going to be like an opportunity. It fits some of the details that you're wanting. Careful on what your intention is. I mean, for me, I buy a vehicle and I don't care about resale. I just drive them into the ground. It's a depreciating asset. I'm going to use it. I'm going to have fun with it. And when it's done, it's done. I'm just going to buy another vehicle that's a few years old. I'll typically buy vehicles, and I did the same thing with the vans that we built out as well. I bought them when they're a few years old. So I don't have to take the depreciation hit for driving it off the lot. I can still put some energy into building it out. But, I would shy away from buying a 2010 and putting a $60,000 build into it. It's just kind of, with one caveat. Now, the older Mercedes Sprinter T1Ns that were pre-DEF, that are in good shape, those things are just gold. They have engines that'll last 300,000 miles. They've been built like tanks. I'd be okay getting an older van like that with a real gem and building it out pretty extensively. It's not about resale value at that point. It's about getting a rig that's going to last forever. But I'd probably stick into the 2018-ish, 1920s for a used rig. Much older than that kind of starts getting questionable. Unless you just want to do a simple 4 build with bed, then yeah, why not? Make it pretty, make it enjoyable to hang out in, and then 2012 or whatever would probably be just fine. If you can find one that's not already built out that needs to be remodeled.
Yeah, that's the hard part. Finding any vehicle is impossible.
Yeah.
Well,
There's,
and
oh, go
for
ahead.
us, I mean, doing your own build, absolutely. But for in the shop, would that make a difference for the year or our rail system?
No, not, that's one beautiful thing about this industry. This is a Class B van, as it's known. And the platform and the chassis kind of behind the driver's seats has not changed, unless they significantly change a model, year. I'm sorry, a model, like I mentioned T1N, on the Sprinter, and I think that's 2007 in both before. Then it went into the NCV3, which went to the B3, NC3, NCV3, and then that started at 2018. But that whole body from whatever it was 2008 till now, the whole patterns were the same, and our rail systems fit pretty much exactly the same. There's a couple of odds and ends here and there, and for the most part, same thing's true on the Transit. They have so many aftermarket accessories than the manufacturers of those accessories, including myself. They really asking the dealers not to mess up a good thing, and the manufacturers are responding in kind.
Awesome, thank you. Eric, did you have a question?
I have to leave pretty soon. My question was mainly about buying a used Transit, probably one with, less than 50,000 miles on it.
Yeah, I'm gonna say that the model years are probably gonna be more recent in the last 5. If you can find one, then grab it. If you can find one that's not already built out, be aware that I'm guilty of this too. I mean, it's just common psychology. People who have built out their own vehicles, DIY, are going to tend to inflate the value of them a little bit. They have their love into the rig. They've either built it out really well or not so much. So just be aware of that. That can tend to be a factor.
Yeah, I found a couple online. I didn't really look very closely. I think they were probably previously U-Haul vans or something. I'm looking more for the Ford. And they were a little bit more money than I really wanted to spend, about $50,000 or something like that for a used one.
Wow, things are still a little bit inflated. And I think that part of the problem may have been with the Transit Trail coming out, a lot of hype for about a year. People didn't want to buy a van because they were waiting for the Transit Trail. Now the Transit Trail came out for maybe 6 months or so.
Yeah.
Then got recalled. So there's a pretty big one. So,
Ford canned it. My brother works at Ford, so that's why I'm kind of familiar with it. That's why, they canned that trail thing for a variety of reasons.
And it's I think that the saying is still true, is if you find one that's used that fits, regardless of anywhere that it is in the country, go get it immediately, because it'll move pretty quickly. Not as bad as it was 2 years ago, but I just missed out on a used car for my family that was posted. Yeah, same thing. The used cars for a good price are disappearing fast. So you have to be really ready to.
Okay, well, thank you for your help here. I have to log off, but I really appreciate the effort you guys put into this meeting today. Thank you.
Good thing, Eric. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for joining.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Well,
Anything else? Any last minute burning questions to kind of help you guys through the process?
I did have a question on the smooth rail mounting system. I've seen a lot of other sort of furniture from other manufacturers you can buy. How easy is it to sort of add furniture that's not Roost furniture to the smooth rail mounting system?
it's pretty easy. I'll hesitate to use the word easy. It really depends on what it is. I'd say in the context of building out a van, it is going to be more forgivable and flexible. A absolutely believe that's why I designed it, than say L-track or some other options. The thing is by having that mounting system, then you have something to mount to. If the intent is to put something in a van, you're in the position where you need to mount it. Without the mounting system, it's going to be a lot harder. With the mounting system, you have that load distributed over a much larger surface area of the van. You have a lot of flexibility that when you do install it, you can micro position it without completely removing the cabinet and, you know, moving it just say 1 more inch over to the left or the right like you do with L-track. And the fasteners that we use that are, it's rail. I mean, you see this stuff installed in, you know, department stores. That's a whole other topic. We're actually going to have another webinar on that, but it's much easier than otherwise. That's for sure. And I'd say it's also much easier than well, I know it's much easier than L-track because I've done both.
I have a little bit, just real quick on like putting together the rail system. I had a stroke a few years ago and I was in the caregiving realm of work. And after I healed from my stroke, I came over and worked in the shop with the guys and was taught how to do the rail system. And I'm only 5 foot and I'm sometimes right-sided weakness. And I am able to put the rail system in by myself.
So as a DIY product, we did a pretty good job on that. I'm really proud of that product.
Yeah, and I think that's sort of one of the things we were attracted to with Roost fans in terms of the configurability, because, you know, we're looking at a vehicle that's going to grow with our family. So super important for us that as the family grows and needs change, we have the ability to change stuff around. So that's, you know, it's exactly sort of what we're interested in terms of, you know, what options do we have in the future.
It's a pretty common theme with a lot of our clients. And I think that's a really, in the context of this webinar, I'll try to stay focused on that, what type of van to choose. Being willing to take it in phases, you know, get the overall height. Well, steps first is the van type. What do you like that drives better, that feels better? After that, how long do you want the van to be? Say, you know, I went through the presentation already. What are your needs? What's primary purpose? And then after that, you know, the roof height, depending on if you get a shorter wheelbase body. And from there, just, you know, you can just do a core build where you put the rail system, insulation, the paneling, and so forth, and you just kind of have an empty house. And start there. Start with an empty house. Throw a inflatable mattress in the back and use it for a few months or a year. So, you know, see how things come together for you and really how you're wanting to use the van. And then after that, you can start gradually putting in more infrastructure. You know, if you haven't done the bed or the cabinetry yet, you could do that. You could even start with a kitchen instead, water, you get micro burner or something. Start with just a simple power station and run it to the top, or not. Just take advantage of the picnic table. Same thing with like awnings. I mean, there's so many things that you can do incrementally. And I think that also, I'll put a plug in for Roost that we do really shine there like that with that biggest approach.
Yeah, I would agree that you start with the van buying process and it's really overwhelming, right? Actually having to figure out what van to do. And you have this whole dream of whether it's a weekend warrior van or it's going to be your live-in van. And as things come to fruition, every stopping point can be really overwhelming. And I think Roost has done a really good job at like creating the kits. If you are going to do a DIY build, right, and you're doing it on your own, having those kits one at a time, ordering them one at a time, installing them one at a time is really powerful and does not make it feel overwhelming. I use that word a lot, but like too big to do. And I think it being adaptable for families that are growing. being able to move it around on the smooth rail system, changing out the beds as things change or grow, or, you know, if it is a live-in van and you do want to live in it, like for me, my house, I want to rearrange the furniture every once in a while, right? Every couple of years. And the smooth rail system creates that for you guys. And so of course I'm biased, but I really, really enjoy that after working in the shop and watching them do the builds and hearing the DIY community at the trade shows. That kit, one at a time, and being able to maneuver things exactly where you want has been huge positive feedback. Any other questions? I hope that this, you know, kind of helped ease the buying a van process, because that's kind of our goal.
And if there's, go ahead. Oh. Yeah, let us, we'll send this out, send the deck out as well as the recording of this afterwards. And if you still have questions, feel free to ping us and we can help even further. Probably the best thing to do is go to the lot and drive a few bits and see what you think. The shorter version, the longer version, and really see what feels right. And then after that, then we can speak more on you know how to build it out to suit the best. Now we're gonna have some more webinars coming up too, by the way. So keep an eye out. We're gonna be doing next up is next month on the 24th, and it'll be a just kind of a build process. And typically more for like people who really settled into what type of van that they might be getting, but not necessary. And then we'll go through how we really flesh out going about the interview process and make up for you. It'll also include like, are you going to DIY it? Do you want to have a professional builder, maybe not even us, build it out fully? Do you want something in between, a little bit of DIY, and the phased approach we talked about before too? So that's presentations being developed now.
Yeah, and just don't forget, like, we're here to kind of support that van adventure, the journey. It's exciting, it's scary, but we're here for it. And I think the next few seminars or webinars that we're going to do is kind of going through that process. How to buy the van. Okay, now you have the van. What's next? It's that next stopping point that's like breathtaking and terrifying. And we just want to simplify it for you so it's not so scary. And you guys are absolutely capable of having that.
Like we had someone in the waiting room a little while back. But it looks like we're wrapping it up. So I think everybody, Shazam, Chris, Graham, Nancy. Good to see you again, Nancy. We have actually a couple of our clients on right now too. So that's quite an honor to experience that. Well, we're right at 7 o'clock. Graham, you unmuted. Did you have anything you'd like to say?
Nope, just thank you very much. Love what you've done.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much for the time. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Well, I'm logging out, and I'll be available if you guys need me. I think everyone has my contact info, so feel free to reach out.
Thank you.
Take care, guys. Have a good night.